Well, good morning to you. I'm going to try to get a short podcast in. I was reviewing some of the material respective to transition and mind models on how all of our wonderful, big, large government works. There's a lot of different types of styles and models. There seems to be modification changeovers, it would seem to be, from administration to administration making certain key changes. Although essentially the whole model stays the same, some of the, commutative structure seems to be changing in layout. If you look at different states models, you can look at the Newsom model, and he made some changes there. And it's kind of interesting how he laid out his administration to work that way. Just taking a look at, I looked at that before several times. There's a certain amount of efficiency to the way that's actually laid out to run a large government. However, one of the other interesting models is I want to look at again, and I can't find my notes on it, and I'm pissed, was the Arkansas model of the way that the Arkansas government system worked, because it had a different style of layout, and there were literally like a whole lot of missing cogs, some people would say. It was a much more streamlined system. So there was a lot to it that was quite different. And I wanted to compare certain factors between these items. And unfortunately, I can't get to those because I just remembered where my notes on that are, and they were located in one of the RVs that is now gone. So one of the RV vehicles that is gone. Lots of fun there. So again, I'll say good morning. You're with Michael Crosby, running for POTUS. Main strategy plan. Why am I still running? Well, first of all, I was the first person to basically file and run and declare for running for the office of the presidency, number one. And number two, which is actually a better number one, is I do not have to withdraw because the opponents are committing serious crimes and violating the Constitution of the United States and participating in committing acts of war against me. That disqualifies them as parties running in an election, and we've been having a big problem, it would seem, with people being able to effectively get complaints in and addressed properly, respective to getting parties deactivated, according to various parties, if you believe anything that occasionally appears in the news. So it would seem that Trump is going to be going to prison, and Kamala Harris, well, she's going to be going to jail, and there's going to be lots of investigation. She's going to be gone. She is involved with a lot of different policies that basically shut down the ability for government to effectively run. Number one policy, that they do not investigate anybody who is a government employee, even if they're a spy. Well, that basically means that they collapse the entire structure of national security. Toast, gone. So this type of mindset is illegal. It's unconstitutional. We have a lot of people that are victims that are left hanging, which is something that my administration is also going to be doing. We're going to be reviewing all past claims and victims and opening up the 24/7 lines to be able to effectively deal with anybody that has claims. Now, at this point in time, I am accepting offers respective to transitional financial contributions. There are different ways to look at that. There are different participation levels. There are different allowance levels on that. It's a bit of a different type of an item that way. It's a lucrative item for some people, you might say, because they get to, help, learn, know certain things. And I have different aspects that are very practical. That basically are going to help a lot of other businesses in their respective runnings, where basically having the opportunity to understand more about the frame structure of how the government runs and the new modifications could be enormously helpful. Now, into this, we also have areas where Parties can interject. We can look at efficiency on everything. That's going to be a lot of what's going to be happening with my administration. Now, basically, we're going to be looking at essentially the government and departments effectively have been running for many, many years, although they've had lots of changes. We have to consider it two ways. Number one, that basically we're going to consider that it has to run this way. It's always been running this way. And we're assuming that there's millions of years of experience, so we're going to allow it to run as it normally runs. Well, there's one big change. We're assuming that the government, that everything's been screwed up. So re-investigating and checking things out is going to be one of the big things that's going to be occurring again with the administration. I'm also doing a mass changeover respective to AI. AI assistive tooling goes everywhere. I've already been upfront about stating that entire design effectively on the web repeatedly. If somebody goes through any of the over 14,000 tweets I have up there, I don't know if I'm not quite up at 15,000. But yeah, so this is kind of an important item to understand how to deal with the various types of interactions. It goes rather extreme. I could go into a lot more details of this, and I could even move at higher speed.
I'd set up what I'd set up before. I was working on is a mass transitional understanding
and share all the goodies, so to speak,
a brand new way
over the air, so to speak.
Business on the same page where we can work together
pods, so to speak,
to basically keep supply chains.
However, a lot of the items are going to deal with
at max productivity.
Past complaints
the entire
as well as
philosophy is a
dealing
max
with new
productivity
complaints.
situation.
Again, that's a big area.
Unfortunately,
dealt with.
I'm scrambling trying to figure out how to get that done. Donations, yes, I need donations.
I'm going to be
I
dealing
need
with
locations. I need offices.
Basically,
I need
intensively
computer resources. I need everything.
Getting input from anyone who works, has worked, or does work in government. I want the interaction. People have been making observations their whole life, I guarantee it, and they have lots of ideas about how to change things. And many of them have been basically blocked out due to, politics, so to speak. So we're going to address that very heavily as to whether or not anyone has any ideas. That's going to be worked with the alternate model modification systems. So my administration is going to cost more to set up because of the new type of integrations with new styles of technology. Now, the complexity of working with the GSA is going to also be problematic, actually, because the GSA basically has a way that they've been doing things for a number of years, and there's no guarantee that the way that they do it is the way I'm going to like it. Now, this is not to say that there isn't certain key legal points to say, by the way, it's been decided it has to be done this way. There's been many, many lawsuits over functions of government. So there's a lot of things been decided that out of transparency or whatever, they have to work a certain way. Now, fairness and product development and product usages and purchasing, acquisitions, so forth, etc. Policy with the GSA respective to using their approved equipment is both good and bad. Let me explain this. You have different criteria of why you need certain equipment to work certain ways. You have heavier duty chips. You have different versions of any kind of electronics, supposedly, that basically go out. So when the GSA is buying their version of certain equipment, it's different. That's why you might notice, I'll just tell you, this is something that I noticed by handling equipment that has been resourced, repurposed, so to speak, that has at one time been sourced through the GSA. So these changes, understanding heavier duty equipment, have a lot of bonuses to them. You have a lot of extra features. If you're looking at things like laptops, many of them are going to have extra features. You're going to have docking ports, specialized docking stations, lots of little bells, whistles, and goodies that a lot of people don't normally have that come in quite handy. So again, that's something that has to be looked at. There are many different types of interface systems for that, And again, we're going to be using more types of interfaces than Carter ever thought of making pills, respective, if you'll pardon the expression. Some of the different areas, there is anomalies in the past that I noticed, that I felt that there were certain products that the GSA was both paying too much for or selling for too much, because they both buy and sell. It's a sales mechanism. I had issues with things that I noticed. I made observations over the years. Now, again, unfortunately, again, the notes on that material, a lot of that material, just, effectively at this moment, all but destroyed, because they were located on, yet again, a different RB unit. So, that was another set of computers. So that, again, makes things really, really difficult. Well, basically, when you're talking about total recovery of all lost RB units, all lost, you're talking about the equivalent of about, the equivalent of about 40,000 hard drives. Now, some of these hard drives, once upon a time, were smaller hard drives. They were backups of other existing systems that were made. That go all the way back to 3.0, actually. So 3.0, 3.1, 195, all these other different versions, etc. And basically, what ends up happening is if you have a computer system where you have a 6 gig hard drive, you end up saving a backup on it on a larger hard drive. Let's call it a 500 gig hard drive. You end up basically having a whole lot of hard drives that are the backup systems that are now stored within a hard drive. So in effect, 10,000 hard drives in reality, because I had a lot of backup for very efficient design softwares from a lot of different equipment, basically, that were set for certain purposes, in which basically they had much smaller systems, 2 gigs systems, but it was mind-blowing, the efficiency of what the functions actually did. But this would be comparative almost to your cell phone of today, but the software was designed to run so much more efficient, and it had other custom features. Now, also into this had there was a master programming conversion set. This is that as each person comes up with certain programming, there was certain programming to integrate a passover system to do an equipment and a bridging system of one language to another language. And this basically meant that you had all these different languages that had their different sections that could communicate with either other machines, or you went through a separate process and things were encapsulated, they were shelled. But different ways of doing this. But basically, all these things were upgraded with a complete history of all changeovers at different types of redundancies, because there's different methodologies for upgrading all of these different program systems. Basically, the evolution of everything that was mainline in programming was evolved through a master programming system, so that I had a master programming system that basically could identify multiple languages at the same time. And those were, again, these are things that are as though lost at the moment. It's a tremendous loss to deal with that, unfortunately. But it's very helpful. The bonus of doing this kind of stuff, getting into that territory where almost computer geeks are the only ones going to understand, is basically that you get to do certain types of function options that in many cases are simplistic. It does not require as many finger processes to do the process. So you might have a 3-window process instead of a 9-window process to access and do the same functions. Now, into this, all of this was going to be translated over into the AI interface systems that I was working with. Basically, these were, big, huge layout cog design stuff that was kind of really, really interesting. So the master sort through of all the hard drives and to set up the finalized series of variant designs was going to be quite an undertaking, literally. And like I said, it had a lot of different ways of using different software for a lot of different purposes, including being able to deal with governmental communications. So we're talking a really vast communication array, multi-array system that for the main archive that had to still be gone through on some of the master sort. Some of it, yes, up, running, working, yes, but the master uprun sort is something that's quite incredible. So, again, I have to say that some people have no idea conceptually of how bad the national security violation is, as these leaders are continuously in dereliction and departments are continuously in dereliction to my requests and demands for assistance to repair national security and get these cases done. And this is all a thing of weird politics, because they don't want to prosecute certain people that are government employees that have basically committed certain crimes. And this is beyond a travesty of justice. This is a situation that is so mind-boggling concerning corruption that it's just really something that you would have had to see it. I would say I was going to show a lot of it to people in different ways. So this is something that keep in mind that even though some of this, a lot of this stuff is gone, that doesn't mean that it's gone. I'm the one that worked through this stuff, so I have a certain familiarity with it, and things come back to you very rapidly when you start working with the material again. So this is not to say that you wouldn't necessarily leave something out, but it's amazing how many things, when you're familiar with so many other different items, and you're like totally, I forgot, and forgetfulness, and you're lost, and all of a sudden, snap, things start kicking in, and you remember what it is that you had been doing. So this is a tremendous edge for doing certain things. And there's all kinds of things that I see the way that certain systems do things today, and I'm like, why would you do it that way? So it's like, no. So, there's going to be a lot of custom design stuff that I've had people, the question is whether or not I was, how close am I to AGI? That's hard to say. I would say that it's possible that I had it many times over in design, but getting a hold of the chips that I needed to set it up, that's a good question, because when you need a certain number of mechanisms to set up the array and run it and get it worked with, and then you miniaturize it yet again, that becomes a big item, But now you're talking about working with thousands and thousands of computers to do those setups, that it's just massive array of trying to do stuff and integrating brand new types of chip systems and doing all kinds of custom program modifications and whatnot. So pause here for a moment. Well, as I come back here, I want to focus more on the transitional modeling setup a little bit. Basically, it's based on historical realness of what we were supposed to have. And we had a lot of modificational changes as we went through Constitutions 1 through 5. We're on Constitution 5. The return to the steward aspects is something that is more and more important, because we had parties that, for various reasons, I don't want to get into a heavy history argument or education item at the moment, but basically the transition to restore and change government back over to what it's originally supposed to be is basically the main core of what I want to get done. And this is something where we're returning everybody to stewards in our original rights, because, the longevity, 1750, year 1750, people, 12 to 14-year-old, you'd build a house in 2 to 6 months, the equivalent of a two-bedroom house. Not as fabulous looking as today, but there were a lot of other nuances, and you would keep building it and changing it as lifetime would go on. But you basically got a 30 house output for a lifetime back then, 38-year longevity. We have a 45-year work span now and a 78-year longevity. So we're expected to work 45 years before retiring. With the upgrades of technology, the efficiency rate increased. It's 480 houses. That's what you're worth for baseline carpentry, 480 houses. So at this moment, we have a economy that is so screwball, it's mind-boggling. And it's set on ripping everybody off. So returning the rights that we're supposed to have is a big part of my administration. Going back through these historical items where we're supposed to have certain things that happened, war interrupted, 60-year wars, whatever, and we're going to restore things, because there's certain legal rights at legal levels that have been forgotten. And you've had people in government keep deciding that, they don't want to repair that, and basically they want to take the money and they want to administer it their way. The problem is the back toes don't work properly. When you break these things down into smaller models, broke these things into smaller models before, and you're working with them. A lot of this, by the way, a lot of this stuff you end up doing this on paper. You're using calculators and paper and whatnot, and and then you can use a gaming mechanism and sit there and go, okay, well, let's change this to represent this, and let's see how this model starts working. So you get to test fragments at a time, basically, until the bigger chips were going to be ready, when I did a lot of this testing. So, but the thing is you get better and better modeling stuff. You can see how models work in your head the more you work with them. So it's like anyone who's done gaming, it gets to the point where you can understand how the models are going to work. You can do it in your head and get a pretty good idea of where you want to go. But now you need to sit there and do a hard set in and really see how it works. Let's find out where your mistakes were at, whatever. So the system doesn't work right that we have because the money doesn't circulate properly. You have Kuwait, where citizens were getting residuals from the oil and minerals, and they were getting, I think it was $68,000 at one time, just before the war with Iraq, and so that was pretty good. Head of household, $68,000. Well, the United States has more. We have more resources. We have more land. We have more minerals. More types of items. If we were doing a fair residual as basically citizens, as investors, we would be getting, as of, I think it was 1993-4 when I did the research, it came to, 1990. It came to 1990, and it came to over, it was a variant. It came to over $90,000, like $93,000 a year, which is interesting. $93,000. So we have a screwed up system where we keep cheating people out of their land rights. For one thing, you keep being cheated out of their land rights, and they're being cheated out of their residual rights. And these are based off of certain hard profit pulls that the government takes for themselves. So if you start handing that money to the people, everybody starts spending that money. They start using that money to do hard asset development. Changes the nature of the way the model works, because now you go to a hard asset based system. So converting our system back to a hard asset development system makes a lot more sense. Now I'm not saying I don't like certain types of services. I'm just saying that there's all these areas to move things forward. So when I've been working with the master overall plan to restructure our government and the nature of how everything works for decades, the plan pays off the national debt in 3.5 years, and it does not cause inflation at all. In fact, it makes our country more solid. It gives our currency more backing, actually, because it's a solid asset growth based item. And there's a lot of people that don't understand this. They want to keep talking about lots of little different angles that go no place. And, with me, I'm serious with, let's actually get the model to work right. Let's do this. And so there's a lot of that's going to be going down on the administration.
And a lot of people are like, well, how are you going to make that work? Well, part of the reason to be able to make that work is that certain parties cheated. They cheated. In other words, we already had the decision from Congress and the Senate. And then you have areas where people were cheated out of what was supposed to be there. So we have to return items basically to the area back where they become the polls again of citizens. And you could pull for getting your allowances that way. So the other thing is you had we used to have a form of state-sponsored capitalism where the community of stewards worked, and we would constantly work to develop hard assets, and that was going to justify the making of new currency. But the 60-year wars got in the way of that, and then other things got in the way of that. So we need to return to the original system because it works. It works very, very well, and it makes everything solid. It makes people solid. Gives everybody opportunity. So that's what we need to do, and then that's a balance that we have to look at that is different. It's a different mindset. When you think about all of these different situations that deal with the various mindsets of these realities, these economic realities, and you have all of these super projects that a lot of people didn't understand at first, and then they did understand. We need new highways, we need new waterworks, we need all these different things. Now the thing is the waterworks, when you look at the Stewart system, it was a little different system that way, where you weren't always thinking about big long-range roads and stuff like that. What they were thinking about mostly was balanced development, where you were constantly looking at land and what you needed to do to get the land developed right and to be able to be stewards of the land properly and have it be balanced. And this was constantly being fought over by other people who had different ideas of managing the land differently. But the Stewart system was more of an active system to understand that, yes, we have to provide for water so we'll be able to give it to the greenery. So in the stewardship project that I'm proposing is we have massive frameworks. I've got the Arc Up, what I call the Arc Up River Water Project, and this actually is something that's going to go all the way up to Canada. As the idea is, it depends who wants to participate. You sell the water you don't need to the west, where you have people in the desert who want to buy that water because they can't find enough water and they desperately want it. So it's pre-sold. It's pre-sold basically. So if we're going to work, by the way, this works really good for the greenhouse. In fact, if you're going to work with repairing our green factors, the best way to get rid of carbon is probably still planting trees. So basically making sure that we have the water going to places where the water can be used when we're taking it from someplace where it's not needed is a done deal. It's a pre-sold deal. Now you have people making money on the resources. In other words, instead of having a bunch of money being made by just the government or just some kind of private industry, it becomes a citizen co-op, basically, in a way. It's not actually a true co-op. What it is we're simply sponsoring the development. We're sponsoring the creation of industries, and we're all the investors. Very simple. We're all the investors. We want this done, and we want governance where we can vote on this, and we want residuals, and we want profits coming to us. And if we did more of that in this country, everything would be balanced. We would have a far more balanced system. And here's the weird part about when you do models like that. Here's the weird part. The weird part is that when you balance all the citizens into the stewardship system, what ends up happening is you have a lot of people that have extra money. They end up having a lot of extra money, and they start developing their own more of their own completely independent ideas. So you end up creating more industry, more manufacturing, more industry. This is what ends up happening, because you have a more balanced structure. Plus, you have a balanced, stabilized asset and currency base availability respective to all citizens, which means you don't have a bunch of homeless people building up all over the place that have no opportunity for jobs because there's no jobs there and no income. You end up having a more diversified series of options where, immediately you're talking about repairing that type of situation, because 3 out of 10 homeless people are ready to go to work. They're ready to go to work. Well, if they were going to work to build their new life and build hard assets, then they would be coming back into society in a way like never before, because you would be fixing these people's lives. You would be ending their depression. You would be ending their stress levels, because now they would end up on a balanced situation. Because there's a lot of people that the reason they became homeless is because they just got chewed up by a model, by a system that was broken, and there was nothing for them, and they just got chewed up, completely chewed up, and there's nothing for them. It's very sad. It's very sad when you run into people that are homeless and they are, you go down, and I remember you used to have people that, vets, you've got vets, you got all these different people that became homeless, and all these people, it's not enough. And a lot of people, retirees, just totally burned out of their retirement. They worked for years. They thought they had it all engineered, and inflation completely gobbled up all their life's works and designs, and it's gone. So restoring more stabilized models is the way to go. It's especially useful for youthful people, and there's just so many ways. There's so much room for this. It's just ample room. We got such surplus room to do this in. It's just mind-boggling to do this, but you have to be willing to be a participant to do it. If you don't want to work, you're not going to build, and if you're not going to build, then you're not going to be setting yourself up as an asset manager system and a steward. But that's okay. If you want to be a painter and live in a tent on the beach, this is America. You can do that, and which is interesting. Okay, there's different areas. You got to break the model down into different sections all over the country, and some of the sections are you've got a lot of similar sections. You have areas where we have losses in people who used to be rural agents, so to speak, that it just economically didn't work for them. And let's not get into all the complicated reasons of why people got screwed out of their life, their land, and everything. We're going to move forward for the purpose of discussion here. Basically, in working with these different models, we've got a lot of area that we have to restore, basically. We've got a lot of area where you had a lot of people who had a different type of life, land, development experience that was different. And we need to restore a lot of this. I've looked at some of the different numbers that people are putting out, and you have a whole lot of people that basically were cheated. Out of their land. But, my whole point on the main argument is everybody got cheated. Everybody got cheated. So, but in order to start restoring a lot of this, we've got people, and I want to explain this really, really hard, real quick. We have people that are willing to dig in the dirt. Do you want to dig in the dirt? I'm not kidding. I am not kidding here. We have people that are willing to dig in the dirt and do food. And I'm going to tell you something. I like to grow a little food from time to time, but you know what? I wasn't deciding to be a farmer. And we have people that struggled to be farmers, and things didn't quite work right. And this is something where you're working with non-perishable assets for the most part. So this means this is a less stable area than working with hard assets. but it's a fragile area, but there are some hard assets. You definitely work with land, for one thing. And the sheer fact is we have to have the food. There's no way around it. We have to have the food. So restoring a lot of these areas where people basically need to get their land back, we have to do that. We have to find a way to get these people compensated and get their land back, because I'm going to be honest with you, there's a lot of people, that's what they want to do, and we need to make sure that we guarantee that they can do that. So we have to look at these diversities of numbers and restore this diversification in numbers. And we have to look at, I've looked at it, to be truthful, I've looked at a lot of this. Some of these people, they want to be organic growers. You've got all these different miniaturized stuff in all these sectors. And I'm talking about people who are ethnically diverse. I'm talking about black people, Indian people, Hispanic people. Okay, I had a phone call interruption there. So, yeah, you have a lot of different people. You got people that came from Europe and all these little different countries and places, and Africa and all these different places all over the world. And a lot of people, they want to do not mega farming. They want to do a more down-to-earth farming. They want to do more of I wouldn't really call it subsistence. Some people would. Depends on the size. There's all these different sizes of projects. But some of these projects, when I looked at a lot of them, they were not a long-term economically viable item. Now, there's a whole lot of ways that we can help change the structure when we restore some of these mechanisms back into place, where we can help people upgrade, adding additional types of features. And among these things, we have to keep thinking about different areas of needs. There's a lot of companies out there, they actually think about a lot of these mass needs over courses of time. Some people don't realize that. There's little tiny companies with, you don't recognize their name, and they do things that nobody understands. And they're doing the design provisional understanding. But we have to provide for people to be able to do more growing where they can do the organic growing. We have to figure out how to do more greenhouse style stuff. We need to figure out how to integrate smaller, more personalized style robotic systems in place and get these models going. You still have people, I could not believe some of the numbers. You still have people that their income for a year is $3,500. And this is, and they're farming. And it's like, this is like a horror story, So these people have worked hard to bring food to the market, many of them their whole lives, and many lives. Land was handed down. We need to guarantee repairs on these, and we need to find additional upgrade features to integrate into these people's lives to significantly raise their income. Well, if they're near a water project like the Arkansas Water Project, they're going to get a $12,000 a year boost from the water sales. But we need to add a lot more to this. We need to think about staying on the cutting edge of our organic seed generation. We really do. We have to really think about that organic seed, because as the population keeps growing, the demand for more organic seed is going to keep growing. So we're going to have to do whatever we have to do and supplement this, because we have to be good stewards in this area. And this means things like doing better greenhouses that have a way that are very expensive. The greenhouse is actually very expensive because you can do a cheap greenhouse, but then if you want to really control everything that's happening, you have to upgrade. You're going to have to integrate all these new things in it. We're going to have to figure out how to do long-term loans, and we're going to have to supplement. We're going to have to give grants to people to do experimental projects, to continuously stay on the cutting edge for this stuff. And one of the big things that I see happening that we need to focus a lot on is how much of a greenhouse production can be done by small robotics and get the same quality out. And the only way to do that I can really see that's going to work is to get people that have these, decades, hundreds, thousands of years of experience from their families, understanding the nature of the seed, the soil, the situations, and then finding a way to help them integrate. So this is testing, basically. This is testing. These are people that are going to be helping us develop the diversity of custom robotics for the future that hopefully will turn into generalized robotics. So we need to do this. We have to get this done. We need to do this. So we're going to have to throw money into it no matter what. So for those people who want to do that. Now, I want you people to keep in mind, you got to have a lot of respect for people that are willing to do stuff and not necessarily guarantee that they're making the greatest pay in the world. And they're going to be doing it with food, and people need to respect that. So I think that this is something that I would mention. I'm going to move on to another item. Okay, prosecutorial areas with integration with my administration. Now, there's a lot of prosecutorial areas where things are way, way behind, and it's a problem. We have to address that, and there's a lot of different areas that have to be addressed. Number one, I'm not talking about people that have marijuana. I'm not talking about people that have a personal problem with narcotics. I'm talking about different areas of law that generally the police are not trained or handled to do it, and there's no mechanism in place. We have a lot of government corruption items we're way, way behind in processing. We also have a lot of other items involving damage from COVID. There are all these people, millions and millions and millions of people in this country that have been damaged from COVID that need repairs. We're talking about people that had their entire lives destroyed. People that worked their whole life, and their entire plan and savings and everything for retirement has been completely destroyed. And we have to immediately address that. We have to get all of these people tracking 5 by 5 again with a solid plan. And this is a big focus item to deal with both with the hard asset growth and getting people set back up and getting them in a doable production state, max production, as much as possible, whatever that is, considering the situation. This includes people who are disabled, even some people who are retired, a different priority. We have to give a whole different priority for people that hit retirement and then somehow got, boom, burned out of everything. We have to give a top priority on that, and we have to work on understanding 1, 2, and 3 year plans to restoring these people's lives and hard assets. So that's another item there. My name is Michael Crosby. I'm running for POTUS. I want to thank you very much for your time.